Oh boy, okay, this is gonna be a long one. Hopefully you're gonna stick around for until the end. First of all, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the concept of this particular VFX. So we're gonna create a stylized explosion, and for me at least, the way that I understand explosion, it starts with like a hot thing and then it burned out and then it becomes smoke, right? So that's what we're going to do now. In this case, I'm going to make a shader that will control how the particle behave, or in this case it started from a hot burning things and then it's slowly burned out and then it becomes smoke. So in this case we're going to use alpha to control that. So this one, as you might see, this is when it so hot, and then you need to drive the emission strength into 0, which turn it into smoke. After it turns into smoke, and you can just dissolve it. So that's the concept of the VFX itself. Anyhow, so let's just make this one. It's gonna be a little bit complicated, so yeah, bear with me. Let's add a new scene. In this case, we're still gonna open that up just in case I need some help. Create a new 3D scene and call this one maybe a particle. So particle, save it for a moment. That's the explosion one that I already created. Maybe I just cloned explosion 2 and then save it over there. Particle, and then let's create a new mesh. Mesh instance in this case, and then create a mesh and then put new sphere mesh, right? There you go. New sphere mesh, and then we're gonna put on the material and then create new shader material. Click on the new shader material and then click on the new visual shader. First thing that we are going to work on is the alpha mask, where it's going to dissolve, or the dissolving effects. So I'm gonna create a texture first, texture uniform, and then I'm gonna rename it into, I don't know, alpha mask maybe will work. All right. And you can connect it to alpha over here. Nothing really happened yet. Oh yeah, you need to connect the RGB into alpha node or alpha point over there. So nothing happened yet because we haven't created any mask. And just create new. Can you see that? All right, a new noise texture. Click on it, and then noise. Create a new open simplex noise. As you might see over there, it becomes a little bit transparent. And then we click on the seamless, so there is no seam. Go back to the visual shader, click on that again, but right now we are going to set the alpha, or the mask here. It's either going to be opaque or not, right? We can do that by rounding the value over here. So by rounding the number or rounding the value of the noise texture is gonna say like, oh, it's 0 or it's 1. There's no in between. So that's what will happen to your material now. Now we need to create another variable, which is a scalar uniform, and call this one is alpha. This is going to be the controller of how opaque is the object. Then we're gonna multiply, slide it over a little bit, multiply the texture, the noise texture, or the alpha mask with the alpha. By doing so, we gonna, hold on a minute, all right, let's go. So we can control the alpha, or how opaque it is. As you might see, it's a little bit weird because the alpha over here, it's the maximum number, or when it's fully opaque, is 1.5 instead of 1, right? We can do that by adding to the value over here. So when the inspector says 0, it's actually 0.5. When it says 1, it's actually 1.5, right? So now 1 is opaque and 0 is kind of not. So with the alpha is working now. So it starts from 0 and then going fully opaque on 1. But as you might see, there is a backface culling happening. You can always change the mode and then set the cull to disabled, and it will also show the back of it. But as you might see, there are gonna be some problem, like on the edges over here. You need to set the depth draw into, instead of opaque, should go to alpha pre-pass, so it becomes nice. So we have a working alpha mask. It's so hard to pronounce. Alpha mask now, and now let's work on the starting thing when it popped up. I don't know what to call that, but yeah. Let's create another uniform, which I don't know, maybe just use color uniform. Go here and then call it emission color, right? All right, you want to go full? Yeah, go ahead. Emission color, and then clamp it, or not clamp it, but connect it to the point there. What do you call that? That's not a node. Maybe that's a node. Yeah, connecting the node, connecting the dot. So if you set the emission color to a color, it will add, or actually it will add to the existing color. So in this one, the default color is white like that, but then yeah, if you change it to red, it will add to that color. So let's go back to emission color, and then we need to multiply, but this one you need to use the vector operators because emission color is an operator, as an operator is a vector 3, I mean. And then go to the emission, and then let's put a scalar uniform and call it emission strength. Emission strength, and then just go there, connect it there, and then we can just adjust the emission strength. So yeah, if it is going to 1, it's going to be, actually you can just set it to like more than 1, which is also good. But if you set it to negative, it will become like the opposite color of the emission color. I think that's what's happening, but yeah. And then that's it. Actually, that's pretty much it. But maybe just add another uniform, color uniform. And then this is for the base color, so I'm just gonna call it base color. Dude, that's so small, yeah, but you cannot see it, but hey, you know, there you go. Just connect it to the albedo, and then albedo, how do you pronounce that? Albedo? Dude, I don't know. My English so bad. Yeah, maybe set it to like grayish color, maybe a little bit dark grayish, because it's gonna be our smoke color, right? And then yeah, set it, gonna set the alpha to this, but in the beginning it will become, or it will show the hot state of the particle, and then it will cool down and then become a smoke, and then it dissolve. So basically that's what we are going to do, right? I told you already. And so we have worked on the emission and the alpha itself. You know, it will dissolve when you change the alpha, and it will set the emission to 0 if you set the emission strength there. And then next I want to work on the displacement map, or not the displacement, the mesh in this case, or distort the mesh. I don't know what you call that. In this case, I have this animated displacement map over here. It's done through vertex shading over here, but yeah, I'm going to show you anyway. Go back to the visual shader and then go set to vertex. It was in fragment before, and then you need to go to vertex, and then we add another texture uniform, and then call this one displacement. Wait, why am I using that? Hold on a minute. Displacement texture. All right, well, that's a lot, but yeah, let's go there. Nothing really happened yet. Why? Because once again, we haven't created any texture there. Noise texture, and then put simplex noise. Nothing happened. Why? Because we need to assign a vertex first. We need to put an input over here, and then we add this vertex input into our noise texture. So hold on a minute. Let me reconnect that, and then there you go. But as you might see, it distorts to one way, which is to the right or to the left. It depends on the rotation of the camera. But we can do that. We can fix this by changing or multiplying the texture with the normal of the mesh. So in this case, let me reconnect that and then add normal to the normal input to the shader, and then there you go. Right now it deformed from center outward, right? And then we can also make or multiply, which going to be the strength of the displacement itself. And then I'm going to set displaced. Oops. What am I looking for? Scalar uniform. Dude, my typing skill is kind of bad. Scalar uniform, and then call it like displace. How much displacement do you want? How many? How much? How many displacements? How much displaced do you want it to be? Right? I think that's the correct way of phrasing it. Now it doesn't really deform, but when we go back to the material and then we set the displace to a higher value, it will displace, or it will distort the mesh itself. You can also change or play around with the noise texture over here. But as you might notice in this demo, it's actually animated. We can also do that, you know, it's not a hard thing to do. We go back to the shader and then we create another texture. In this case, texture, you know, actually we don't need to create another texture. We just put the input time over here and then add to this case, and we add UV first. Also we add UV, connect the UV to the add, and then this one also there. But we need to specify which direction do you want it to animate. In this case, I think it's going down, so it's positive on the y-axis. All right, save the project, don't forget, and then connect it and connect it. Nothing happened yet because you need to specify the y value. In this case, I think I'm gonna go 1. So 1 is too fast. All right, 0.5. All right, oh, actually minus. All right, okay, so -5 minus 0.5 will go, will make the distorted mesh animated. So yeah, pretty good. All right, so we've done with the material of the particle itself. So we need to work on the next thing, which is the particle system. So let's go to the create a new scene and then create a 3D scene and call this one part system, or whatever you might call it, you know, actually, and just do that because I love it. And then particle system, and then we add the particles to it, and let's add new processing material or new particle materials, and then yes, that's it for now. But and then you go to the draw passes, and then you need to create a new mesh, new sphere mesh. Right now it shows something. Then you can just play around with the value over here, but I think the things that really important is the explosiveness. You know, I usually set it to 1 or maybe 0.95. It's all up to you. And then where is it, the value, maybe like amount 32, and then the gravity, I think I want to set to 0 first, and then the emission shape, set it to sphere, and then it just showed up like that. Right, after you have this particle system working for you, or at least showing something, now let's go to the material tab and then go to the explosion part material, you know. Oh, don't forget to save it first. So in this case, you need to click on it and then save the material. It will show the dialogues, whatever. And then you need to drag the explosion part material to the material section. Now, it doesn't really animate the way that we want to because there is no driving value or driving variables that drives the variables. You know what I'm talking about? Well, yeah. Now let's go to the shader again. It was in the vertex. Go back to the fragment because that's what we are going to deal with. First, I think I want to work on the alpha, so the masking itself. So instead of using this alpha, I think I'm gonna use the built-in alpha input. Right, so in this case, just disconnect the alpha and then connect it to add. Nothing really happened yet. Why? Because you need to set the alpha on the particle, or the process material on the particle system. So in this case, go to color and then click on the color ramp. Can you see that? Okay, I think I need to go up a little bit. All right, click on the color ramp and then new gradient texture, click on it, and then on the gradient, create new gradient. And then yeah, it actually doesn't really matter the color, but I think I'm gonna switch it to instead of from black to white, I'm gonna set it to from white to black, right? And then you need to set the alpha also to go down. And as you might see, it's instantly animated the way that we want to, right? Now go to the pass and then go back to the material and then go back to the visual shader. That's a lot of step. Now I think we can just delete the scalar uniform there, just for the clarity sakes. And then instead of using the emission strength, we need to use the alpha again, because the alpha will drive the same value. You can also drag it over here, but I think it's just make it into a spaghetti, confusing things. So I don't really want to do that. And then when you set the alpha to that, it's actually looking pretty decent. But as you might see, it will fade out in the same time. We want the emission to fade out faster than the faster than the alpha mask, right? So what we need to do is subtract the alpha with like a value like 0.5 maybe. But as you might see, there is like it turns into green, and as I point out before, if it turns to green-ish color, it becomes negative. And to limit that, we can add max function. Let me drag it a little bit so it can be a lot clearer. Oops, max, and then just connect it there and connect it there, so it will not turn green anymore. That's pretty much it. Well, maybe to add a little bit more variation, you can also assign the noise texture into, or you can also assign the noise texture maybe. Oops. Right, it doesn't really feel so hot because the emission strength is not, what is it? It's not set. Maybe I need to put another scalar or put back the scalar uniform for the emission strength. Emission, right? And then multiply. Okay, multiply, and then multiply. Ooh, why doesn't it connect? All right, connected again. Right, let's go. And the strength, set it to how much? Right, maybe 20. Oh, that's too bright. So that's good. It doesn't really show much because there is no lighting over here, so maybe I just copy the lighting from this case or from that node to this node. Right, it doesn't look better, but you can tweak things around. You can also work on the particle movement itself. So let's say you want it to move a little bit on the upper direction. You can set the gravity to 1 and it will move, maybe not 1, 10 is too much, but to 3. And then yeah, also you can play around with the damping. Damping is just a force that stops the movement from happening. If the initial velocity is 2, you can put it higher, but if it is too high, like 10 for example, it will stop immediately, unless that's what you want. But I usually want something that still moves, or that still lingers a little bit. The movement still lingers a little bit. Now for the finishing touch, I just add the sphere over here. Like in this case, as you might see on the demo, there's a sphere that popped up before the explosion happening, so you can just pretty easy to do that. Create another mesh instance and then put on the new sphere mesh, click on it, and then create a material. Just use a spatial material because it's built in. I want to turn off the particle first, and then click on the emission enabled, and then set the color of the emission. In this case, I think I want to make it a little bit reddish, and then set the albedo of the color of the base mesh, or the mesh itself. Set it to yellowish or even white-ish, and then maybe play around with the energy here. 2 sounds good. 3, not sounds good, seems good. Yeah, I'm gonna put animation player over here, create new animation, and then just call it explode. Actually, set it to 1, it's fine. Go to the particle system and then set the emitting to yes. Click on the keyframe to add animation, and then maybe go a little bit forward. Like I don't want to turn on the snapping. Over here, maybe like 0.05, and then turn it off, and then set the loop. Will it loop? Let's see. Right, okay, that looks good. And then we need to scale these things up. You can actually scale it through the radius over here, like set it to 2 and 4, right? Or I can just use the where is it, the transform here, but yeah, it works same. And now from visible to invisible, that's what we are going to do. Visibility, click on the keyframe there, and maybe around 0.1. Let's say 0.1. Set it to invisible. Right? Is that too long? Linger too long? I don't know. Maybe it lingers too long, or maybe it's not big enough. Maybe make it a little bit larger. 2 and then 4.4. Right. Oh, that lingers too long. Yeah, you can always play around with this one. Right. Or maybe just make the size of the particle smaller. Maybe that will help. It doesn't though. It looks better, I guess. Yeah, you can also put more particle in it. You know, like 64, maybe it's a good number. Yeah, I think in this case you just play around with the with the value and try to find the look that you want. Right. All right. Oops, why is it? All right. Okay. You can also play around with the color to set how fast do you want it to fade out or to dissolve. Something like that. It doesn't look good though. Maybe make it a little bit faster like that. All right. Okay, let me turn off everything. The gizmos, CPU, the particle. Particle, set it to, okay, let's see. All right, oh, it still look to, what is it? It's not that randomized, so I think go to angle and set the angle to whatever value that you want. And set, oh yeah, I forgot to rotate the Y, right? So it will go to the random value. All right. All right, so that's one way of doing it. All right, so here is the example that I created inside a game. In a real game, not a real game, but it's just a prototype. And let's see, this is hack and slash, but I think you can use this in different type of game, of course. VFX tend to be general. So right, the enemy spawn. Let me get away from the walls over there. Right, nothing really happened yet. If I slash the guy, there you go. You have the stylized explosion over there, kind of fitting with the shading that I've used. In this case, like a toon shader type of thing. And yes, as you might notice, maybe there's a difference between the example that I show you in the tutorial and also this one, where it doesn't start with a sphere. It started with spiky spheres. I don't know what to call it anymore. Well, yeah, I created in Blender and then just exported it and then used the same material actually with the tutorial that I showed you. And also you might see the difference in details in terms of the particle and the movement maybe, and also there's a sparks at the beginning of the explosion where to add more details to it. Well, it's pretty easy to achieve. I think I don't really need to make a tutorial out of it, but yeah. Hey, thank you so much for watching and sticking around until the end. It was really a fun and enjoyable tutorial, at least to me, experimenting doing it, you know. And yeah, hopefully you use it in your game, and please let me know what you made with the technique that I showed you. And don't forget to like and subscribe, all that jazz, and leave a comment down below and what type of tutorial you want to see or what type of content do you want me to make. And once again, my name is Arif, signing out. See you next time, and see you on the next tutorial. What am I saying? All right. I should voice act this thing, right?